let's see, do this book review of the 48 Laws of Power that I got the request for the other day, and then I read the book. Try to do the book review now, unless the yawns start attacking me. I don't think I'd ever heard of the book, but I think I'd seen the dude's face around, the guy who wrote it. Can't remember the guy's name, but he's like doing the rounds. He gets interviewed. I saw him get interviewed by Jordan Peterson. He did a big old conversation with him, and then I saw him get interviewed. He was going to get interviewed by Lewis Howes. This was like a football player who was doing the show with Mike Tyson. I know I didn't see that. I saw a little bit, or maybe I saw all of. I think I saw all of the interview he did with Patrick Beck-David, and he did like a bunch of with him, and then he did an interview with Tom Bilyeu, and I think I saw like half of that, maybe like a half hour of that or something. And then I think I saw that he was talking to other people too. So he's like a prolific writer. And so he wrote a book called The 48 Laws of Power, which was in 98, I guess, and it became which I guess is 24 years ago now, but became a very popular amongst the rappers. And so 50 Cent liked it and wanted to write a book with him, and wrote a book called like The 10 Laws of Fearlessness with him. And but his book has a very like Machiavellian edge to it. He references Machiavelli a lot, and he uses, if you do a word search in the book, he says you're a victim, how you're gonna, and he has the word like victim and like intimidate and just really like dark words over and over again. And when I listened to the book on YouTube, the dude who read it even had a very sinister voice, and the book was banned by prisons because prisoners, I guess they thought prisoners were reading it to become better prisoners. And I was listening to his interview, and like nobody called him out on it, because I thought it was odd, because that he would kind of like inconsistent that he would write a book like how to like fuck people over. That's kind of like what it sounds like. Or be the best in the dog pound or something. Then he gets interviewed by people, and he's acting like he's this like high-end, first-rate, like self-help historian type of person. And but he's he's a little bit, nobody called him out on it, except for Jordan Peterson at the beginning. He's like, yeah, I listened to it, and it was like, ooh, this is dark. And he's like, and then he even explained, and he goes, well, yeah, because that's kind of how the world is, and I was just writing to adapt to the world and how the world is. And so that's fair enough, but it's still inconsistent that he would then turn around and try to be like a totally nice guy, like self-help, knowledgeable historian person. Like he should write a book oriented towards how to be successful in a healthier society. Because when I was listening to the book, I was starting to think about evolutionary psychology and spiral dynamics, because I was reading about that lately. And before that, I was even, because I'm working on a history timeline, so I want to plug that's color-coded and font-coded, and I wanted to include all of this other stuff. There's a book called Generations with all the different generations by Strauss and Howe. I even got the book yesterday. I have the actual book. I listened to it on the internet, but then I bought the book because of all of the different charts, you know. And I think I want to get the Spiral Dynamic book too for their charts. But I've been copying a lot of them and looking at them. But it's kind of similar. It's interesting that they don't reference each other, the Generations guys and the Spiral Dynamics guys. But they're like talking about the same thing, just in a different way. But yeah, the angle of the book, he was in Spiral Dynamics. You have different color codedness of the development of people, and he was talking like in the red zone, red and yellow zone, like the more primitive. So let's just read really quickly what they are. Like, never outshine your master. 2, never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. And he uses the word enemy like 100 times too. Like, your enemies. You know, it's like from the viewpoint paradigm of zero-sum game, where there's only one winner, in the, you know, like, I guess, you know, actors trying to fight for like a role or something would read a book like this. 3, conceal your intentions. 4, always say less than necessary. 5, so much depends on reputation, guard it with your life. 6, court attention at all costs. 7, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. See, that's dark. 8, make other people come to you. Use bait if necessary. 9, win through your actions, never through argument. 10, infection, avoid the unhappy and unlucky. 11, learn to keep people dependent on you. 12, use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. 13, when asking for help, appeal to the self-interests of others, never to their mercy or gratitude. 14, pose as a friend, work as a spy. 15, crush your enemy totally. See, dark. 16, use absence to increase respect and honor. 17, keep others in suspended terror, cultivate an air of unpredictability. 18, do not build fortresses to protect yourself. Isolation is dangerous. 19, know who you're dealing with. Don't offend the wrong person. 20, don't commit to anyone. 21, play a sucker to catch a sucker. Appear dumber than your mark. Your victim. Use the surrender tactic. Transform weakness into power. 23, concentrate your forces. 24, play the perfect courtier. Well, we're only halfway there. 25, recreate yourself. 26, keep your hands clean. 27, create a cult-like following by playing on people's need to believe. 28, interaction with boldness. 29, play all the way to the end. 30, make your accomplishments seem effortless. 31, control the options, get others to play with the cards you deal. 32, play into people's fantasies. 33, discover each man's thumbscrew. 34, be royal in your own fashion, act like a king to be treated like one. 35, master the art of timing. 36, disdain things you cannot have, ignoring them is the best revenge. 37, create compelling spectacles. 38, think as you like, but behave like others. 39, stir up waters to catch fish. 40, despise the free lunch. 41, avoid stepping into a great man's shoes. 42, strike the shepherd and sheep will scatter. 43, work on the hearts and minds of others. 44, disarm and infuriate with a mirror effect. 45, preach the need for change, but never reform too much at once. 46, never appear too perfect. 47, don't go past the mark you aimed for in victory. Learn when to stop. 48, assume formlessness. So, my impression of this book is that, see, the guy who wrote it's really prolific, because he's written a bunch of books, is that what he did is he went and Googled like what are common like self-help sayings, and then so he would choose the 48 that he liked the best, and then he would search through history to find something that he could make a connection between the two, and then he would write and weave them together. So he would start the chapter with his idea about the law, and then he would tell the historical story, and then he would say, "See, that's why you should do it too." And I enjoyed the book because he wrote his historical stories really well. And I love historical stories, and there were a lot of the stories were ones I'd never heard of. And but the whole part about the part about like the logic, and how he pieced it together, and saying, and that's why that part of it is like second tier. That part of it is like high school quality. The writing was fine, but he definitely shouldn't go around acting like he's a first tier intellectual, because a second tier intellectual is somebody who goes with the flow to make money, like what he did. He said, "Well, that's how the world is. So that's literally what he said to Jordan Peterson. So I bent to it, and I wrote a book about it." That's literally what he said. A first tier intellectual is somebody who recognizes the need to push the world forward and actually tries to actively change people's minds and push them in that more advanced direction. And so here's where I'll bring in spiral dynamics, because I can't remember his name. I should have looked it up before I did the video. Is speaking to people in the red and yellow. Here, I can do a video about spiral dynamics later if anybody asks me to. But just real quickly, I'll describe what it is like. And I kind of, what's interesting is I wrote spiral dynamics into my timeline before I even knew what it was. I never had the time to really look into it. But I color-coded the gradients, the levels of development of polities, of countries, societies on my timeline. And because so it's like, with the rainbow, it's purple, it's pink, orange, yellow, dark yellow, green, dark green, blue, dark blue, purple, and then light purple, basically. Those are the 10. And so like, I think I went, like I did tribe at 6, which is green, because maybe that's because they live in the trees and there's lots of like nature, I don't know. But then a level higher than that is like, I did red, which was a monarchy, and then orange was constitutional monarchy, and then the color beyond that like was blue, which was parliamentary republic. Blue is presidential republic, and then purple was parliamentary republic. So it kind of progressed up through the lines a little bit like that. And so with spiral dynamics is you have a different color representing a different state of mind. And like brown is like animals, and then like survival is like brown, and then red is like warrior, might makes right, and then orange is more like where you follow laws, and that started 5,000 years ago, or maybe because red started 15,000 years ago. And then after orange, you have green, which is where you have morals. And then after that, you have the blue and the purple. And then that's like second tier blue, and where you're actually thinking about the world. Blue, you're thinking about the world. Like purple, you're thinking about like you have a plan for the world, and you understand each level and respect it and know when it's appropriate. And so, like a first tier intellectual would be Jesus, who was trying to change people's minds and advance into Christianity, where people would, society would advance from might makes right and to follow your moral code. So getting from red up into green levels, or Buddha or something. And so, and there are plenty of people now who are trying to do that. And so those are the people I think who should be making the rounds over at all these interview people and trying to pretend that they're self-help and giving those types of laws, those types of rules for a more higher society. Because if you follow the rules that he's doing here, because we're not in a red society anymore, you're just going to piss people off. If you follow these rules in like a more basic society, like maybe high school kids or junior high school kids, or like gang members, or third world countries, or maybe like Hollywood, because he was saying, yeah, in the music business it's real cutthroat. Well, then maybe, but you'll still piss people off because we're coming out of that, you know what I mean? And you don't want to be left behind and be one of the, because you'll feel dumb later when everybody changes. You'll look back 20 years ago and you'll be like, well, why the hell was I one of the people who was still trying to hang on to that old stuff? But one interesting thing to do is to look at each one of these laws of power and transform it into a more advanced state of mind framework. Because each one of these laws of power can be, there's it's like in spiral dynamics they call them holons, and like something, you're part of the whole. But there are things that you always have inside of you and they never change. Like when you learn, it's called spiral dynamics because as it spirals around, individuals are always in the society who are in all the levels, and everybody is in all the levels at one point in their life. So it goes around like that, and there's little elements of it, but then the main part of it, where the most adults are, it actually changes, and so it looks like the colors change and it evolves through time. But oh man, I'm almost losing my train of thought. I smoked a bunch of weed before I did this. But as you move forward, all of those different laws, like everything, it exists. It just transforms. And so, yeah, let's look at these laws and look at the basic law, and then just show how it would transform, how you would use it, this same law, only in a more healthy environment, like where people see through bullshit. Because this is written for people who can't see through the bullshit. Written for people who see through the bullshit and actually have like respect for everybody, and like in a world where it's not zero-sum game, so everybody is able to, because that's how we arrive at different levels of society, is when people get less desperate and they don't have to. So once everybody has enough money, people actually, what's going to motivate people is just self-improvement. And then self-improvement can, and then, because you're happy in yourself, you're going to be more naturally inclined to help other people in society, and you'll be motivated by what helps society, not even worried about what people think of you, like people recognizing that you're trying to help society, but you'll just actually inside be motivated, because it's like permeated into your soul, and that's how you look at the world. And so let's just quickly examine all these laws from the different perspective. Kind of like what I recommend him doing is he should rewrite the book only for a green level or like a purple level perspective, and then show how it evolves. And then he could be like a first tier intellectual instead of one of these, like, because it's kind of like, he needs to be called out on it, because we're running out of time. We might all die. A lot of people think we will. And that's where all the crime and lack of evolvement that we really need is coming from. And so intellectuals need to push people along. They can't be like encouraging people to stay stuck in the mud, like be criminals, And it's like, it's a good thing that they banned this book from the prisons. So never outshine the master. Now the example he gave for this was with a Tesla, where a Tesla like designed the AC DC light bulb for Edison, and had a really bad deal, and ended up getting fired when he wasn't needed, and then he couldn't get investments after that because he couldn't prove that it was him who was the guy who invented all of it, and like everybody thought it was Edison. And so if he hadn't have outshined Edison, then he wouldn't have made Edison so mad and try to backstab him. And he could have like he didn't really explain exactly how, but like doled out his knowledge incrementally, or maybe like gone to business for himself. He should have gone to business for himself instead of somebody else. But number one, that this law doesn't apply for nowadays anyway, because we have social media and nobody can like tell a false narrative. You can always, everybody's now is always going to know who the guy who came up with the ideas. But number two, I don't think his example's really all that good in this one. Was it? That's kind of just like how business is. Like when Edison didn't pay him the bonus that he said he would for inventing, he should have just sued. Like America is one of the best litigious countries in the world. That's one of the beauties about America. You can sue people when they fuck you over. And for Edison to say you don't understand American humor, that had nothing to do with America. It was just Edison being a dick. And so like if he didn't take, maybe he should have changed the chapter, like stand up for yourself and get a goddamn lawyer. But anyways, but so I don't think that really. And that wouldn't work today, because you would man, I shouldn't get bogged down on all 48, or I'm gonna be talking forever. But don't if you're working with somebody who gets jealous of you, like you don't have to. You can always go into business for yourself. People are splintering off nowadays all the time. Anyway, but how would you translate that into a law for now? Well, like never, like you can be sinister and outshining your master, and that's not the example that he gave in here. Maybe he should have, but don't, like, when there's people around watching who are important and there's somebody around, don't try to like make them look bad just to boost yourself up. Anyways, number two, never put too much trust in friends. Learn how to use enemies. So he was talking about Basil, the Byzantine emperor, who I guess made a friend who was a peasant, and then he grew up in the ranks and married him to his like ex concubine, and the guy actually turned around and had him executed and took over and became the emperor. And so because of that, he shouldn't have promoted his friend. He should have promoted like the guy from the opposing faction or something, or like the more established people. Now this, out of all of the examples he gave, was the stupidest. Because number one, Basil was, I Wikipedia'd it, and he was known as like a useless drunk. And like if you look at history, like in the Chinese, whenever there's a coup, nobody really questions it, because they're like, oh, well, it must have happened because he must have been a really bad leader. Bad leaders get toppled, like that was kind of like how democracy worked in the past, revolutions and rebellions. They didn't have a mechanism for voting them out, so they would do the revolutions and the rebellions, and that's how they would churn up around the different families and the different factions and the different workers. You don't want to have the same family who's like useless stay in there all the time. And Rome and Byzantine Empire had a history of having useless people like Honorius and guys like that. And so This was just another example of like one of those, coups that happen all the time. So to say that you shouldn't trust your friend, I mean, they never said anything about that in the books. He made that up. Because I read about, I mean, there was, backstabbing, but you could give better examples for that than this. But the rule, like learn to use your enemies. Well, yeah, I mean, nepotism's a big problem. That's probably the rule that he got it from, to get the idea from this. And there's all kinds of reasons why you don't want to do nepotism. It's not good for the country, and it's also can be bad for your reputation, So anyway, law number 3, conceal your intentions. And having dangling a decoy. I think this one was when he was talking about the mafia guy, Al Capone. Some guy went in there and he was going to help Al Capone, and so he wanted to borrow the money to do the gig, but then it didn't fall through, so he went back to Al Capone and said, "Oh, I'm so sorry, here's the money back." And Al Capone was like, "Oh, you're so honest for giving the money back. Here's an extra $5,000. And he's like, and he's like, "See?" And then he made the money, and he did that on purpose. And I'm like, how would you know Al Capone would give the money back? That didn't make any sense to me, but maybe I misunderstood it because I was doing work on my website when I heard it. But concealing your intentions, that's not something that my brother actually follows. My brother is a Buddhist. And he said that in Bon Buddhism or in Buddhism, you're not supposed to say what you're plan on doing because that gives you bad karma. Because then I guess everybody knows, and so then all of their wishes, their jealousies against you doing your thing will somehow magically like turn the spirits against you or something. And that's what I came up. That's all he said was that's what they believe. But I mean, in the past, I can't remember what his example was, but I mean, in the past, when something so much rides on one thing and you don't have anything to fall back on, well, yeah, don't go around telling people about some invention when the guy who has the money for the patent can just go and steal your idea. Like, wait and save your own money up for the patent and then do it without telling anybody, obviously, for that. But in modern days, concealing intentions, you would want to do that just to avoid, kind of like in the same vein, avoid people getting like jealous of you, and then getting like passive aggressive at you. I think I've experienced stuff like that. Like I tell people about my website, and the next thing I know, they're like acting awkward, and rude and stuff. So it kind of basically kind of falls into this other thing. Always say rule number 3 and 4, kind of like the same. 4 is always say less than necessary. And that's another one of these rules that people in olden times do, and you really shouldn't do it anymore. When President Ronald Reagan's like first wife died, I remember reading something when she was like she was known for, or she made a quote about how you need to be discreet with everything, and like the people who are all discreet and secretive, those are the people who have stuff to hide. You know what I mean? If you don't have anything to hide, then why would you try to hide anything? Because it takes extra like stress, and effort. Like he's giving me all these rules, and it made me think of a psychopath. I'm listening to this is the book that a psychopath could benefit from, because he's giving all of these rules that if you were super selfish and you only cared about manipulation, you would memorize it all, but that's the only thing that it's useful for. And I'm watching all these YouTube videos of ex-Scientologists, and this guy, I can't remember his name, but he interviews a guy called HG Tutor, who's a YouTube channel, who's like a actual psychopath. And there are psychopaths who are good, like they're not criminals and they have families and they're good people, but they're psychopaths because it's a brain thing. But I think most psychopaths or a lot of psychopaths who have the psychopathic in your brain, and then you're also abused as a child. That's where you become an actual like activated psychopath. And I think that guy H.D. Tudor actually said he was maybe like an activated psychopath. Like nobody wanted to know him, you know. But this other neuroscientist was, and he was a good person. But he was just like cold to people around him. But anyway, yeah, but like that's how they like judge people. Like you look at, that's why they have these dead eye stares at you, because they're not using their brain power to connect with you emotionally and like try to develop a relationship and do that dance of two humans having a growth together. But they're looking at you just to like sizing you up. They're like a human robot, and they're just seeing like where your strengths and weaknesses are, and then they're gonna like try to pounce on your weaknesses to twist, and then like, you know, and then suck like a vampire from your strengths, and you know. And but if you act like that in real life, people don't like you, and then they move away, and then your reputation. And his other rule in here is your reputation is everything. So that's like logical inconsistencies in this book. Like he's talking about your victim this, your victim that. Well, it's eventually going to fuck up your reputation. But then he says your reputation is all everything on this thing. So it's like, what's he talking about? Like people who move around, like we're moved to a new town. Hey, where nobody knows you. When I went to Chile, like my wife's family, where we like would say like, did you get in trouble in America? Why are you just here? You know, people think that sometimes. Anyway, number 5, so much depends on reputation. Guard it with your life. Like they actually had the 2 rules right next to each other. And I don't remember what rule he said, what story he said having to do with this. Law 6, court attention at all costs. Well, yeah, that's like a well-known marketing thing, right? Any news is good news, and I think he gave an example for that. I can't remember what it was. Law 7, get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit yourself. Who was he talking about? Who did that? Well, that was Edison and Tesla. It doesn't say on this article the actual examples of the book in the book, but I mean, yeah, I mean that's how a lot of businessmen get ahead in the world. But you know, we're getting more and more sophisticated with business as time goes on. It just gets harder and harder to be able to like secretly do things that benefit you and screw other people over. You know, like the mafia can't exist anymore because the cops figured out how to bust them. So I would say this is a moot, but how would that transform into now? Well, yeah, you know, like if you have extra money, I don't think there's anything wrong with outsourcing your work for your project. Like if I had a bunch of extra money, I would pay money to like people in India or around to do the tedious work that I do on my website just to get it going faster. And then when I'm done, it's my website. It's not like I have to share it with these other people who aren't connected to it. So if you're working on a project and you have people helping you, but all they care about is the money, that's fine. You know, that's like the heart of capitalism right there. Law 8, make other people come to you, use bait if necessary. I can't remember the goal he said for this. I'm going to try to speed it up because I have to take a leak. Well, for me, how I would use this law is, you know, if I'm going to get done with my website, I really have to use my time efficiently. And so I can't be doing stuff with other things. So I actually benefit from not hanging out with people and having friends because it saves like that much time every day. And so yeah, I mean, if I do want to make friends eventually, what I would do is just advertise myself as somebody who you would want to make friends with. And then somebody who would come to me would be somebody who could match me on an intellectual level because they want to be friends with me on an intellectual level and not want to be friends with me because they like want me to be like their tour guide or like buy them things or whatever. And then, you know, if you have a lot of people coming to you, then you can pick and choose. And then, you know, and that's actually the best way. And if you're like lonely and like you're not known and you have to actually go out and find people to be friends with, it's harder to be distinguishing, but it's definitely important, I think. Just be aggressive and meet a lot of people, but only make friends with the good people. I've like had a lot of friends in the past who were bad people who I shouldn't have been friends with. That's like a whole nother video, but um, I guess I used to pride myself on hanging out with lots of different types of people. So at least I have stuff to talk about, to write about. But anyways, law number 9: win through your actions, never through argument. Well, yeah, because it's really related to the law before it. His laws are kind of like melting together. Yeah, like if I wanted to make money or whatever, do well, I would just work through on my website, and then I wouldn't, like, this would be like work on your website versus advertising. My mom's always trying to get me to advertise my website, and I'm like, well, just finish the website, and then I wouldn't have to advertise, because the product will speak for itself, right? And so don't get ahead of yourself, and know the order to do things. That is how I would interpret this law. Law 9: infection, avoid unhappy and unlucky. Yeah, I was hearing people say before. Yeah, they were talking about Andrew Tate, and I looked at Andrew Tate video talking for a little bit, and he was saying something that, and I guess some other people said it too, but like you were like the 5 people you become like the 5 people you spend the most amount of time with. And I was thinking about that, and it's like true, like and that's like the only thing that he says that I agree with. Like, I think that guy's a creepo, because he used his example, like, because there's my friend who was weak, so I punched him and knocked him out. It's like these guys, but like, I think, and I never really thought about this before, but it's true. Like, you absorb people's energy, and so like if you're talking to somebody, like that person who you're talking to could be actually absorbing from you the energy that you absorbed from somebody you hang out with, even though it's not you. And it could be off-putting, because you could be like transferring their energy. It's kind of like when you know somebody and they have shoes, really old shoes, and you look at their shoes and you can see their personality in their shoes, or their clothing. And it's kind of like that. Like, I think people's auras rub off on other people, and so that's why it's important. And what if you're hanging out with like 5 of the same kind of people who are all negative in a certain way? They'll like drag you down. And so I think that's an important thing to learn, and it's something that I wish I knew more when I was younger. It's better to be by yourself and working on stuff on your own than to be hanging out with people who are going to drag you down. And I think part of dragging down is also insult. If anybody like insults you, then ditch them, because if they do it once, they're just going to do it again, and they're just some kind of vampire or jealous or something. So yeah, go hang out with, and if you're hanging out with somebody who's happy, it means they like you and you like them, so it's good. And there's so many people. That's the beauty within the world now, is there's so many people you can choose to be friends with. You don't have to be limited. Okay, number 11, learn to keep people dependent on you. See, that's dark. Well, I mean, in a bright way to look at it, only hang out with people who you can help. If somebody doesn't need you, don't hang out with them, because they don't need you. They can do better with somebody else. And so, and so like that even goes into what Jesus said, help the poor, help the needy. But it doesn't even have to be like needy across the board. Help somebody who could use you more than somebody else, kind of like puzzle pieces. People can piece together like puzzles. Okay, so 12, use selective honesty and generosity to disarm your victim. So he was saying, yeah, like you give somebody money, and then when you ask to borrow money, you ask more and never pay them back. So that's dark. Or compliment them, and then you can insult them and they won't say anything. It's like, yeah, it's so stupid. So how would you translate that into something that you could use in a more healthy environment? Well, yeah, I mean, if you only have enough energy to compliment people, then save it on people who will actually appreciate it. Because if you're always complimenting people who like poo-poo you, it's kind of like it kind of deflates your energy, And yeah, so but I mean, hopefully, and maybe in the future, everybody will enjoy being complimented and not insulting each other. Okay, Law 13. When asking for help appear to the self-interest of others, never to their mercy or gratitude. Yeah, like for me, yeah, because if you do that, it kind of makes you seem pathetic and stuff. But like for me with my website, yeah, like I don't think I would ever have to ask anybody money. I would just say, hey, look at my website. But if I do ask for somebody money, like a rich person for money to like do triathlons and stuff, I would say, yeah, it's good for your reputation. Yeah, it's good for your reputation. And if I don't, and if you don't help me, then I'll just get somebody else to, and then you'll be out. Anyways, 14. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. Pose as a friend, work as a spy. Crush your enemy totally. You know what? I really have to pee, and I've talked for 41 minutes. I think I've gone through enough of these laws. You basically get the gist of it. Yeah, I mean, it was well written, and I enjoyed the little historical tales, but the angle, he needs to update it and do it for more positive. And if anybody wants me to do a video about spiral dynamics, just let me know. Peace out.